Today, we are going to review the economic data that we got from the ENCOVI general study of the Venezuelan society. And this is a very interesting information, very accurate, actually very trustworthy, and it's going to worth your while. So let's start.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
Today, we are reviewing the economic study made by the UCAP, the Universidad Católica Andrés Bello, one of the most prestigious universities here in the country. They, since the past decade, have doing a yearly review, study, and analysis for information, data regarding Venezuelans, and this goes from economics, demographics, living conditions, statistics, and so on, since there is not a lot of official information regarding such conditions. Now, something that I have to point out is that this particular study is made amongst most of the major cities within Venezuela with a big sample size, so the results are very accurate. Let's start by the fertility rate in Venezuela. The early peak fertility persists. 28% is concentrated in the 20 and 24-year-old females cohort, of course, the Venezuelan population, and 45% of the fertility rate is the ages between 15 years old to 24 years old. The total fertility rate in Venezuela is 2.01%. It's a little bit below the replacement rate for any given population, that is 2.1 children per woman. The fall in fertility rate has cut across the social spectrum, and the gaps that have been reduced, but the average number of children per woman is still higher among the poorest women. Now, if we take a screenshot of the fertility rate amongst the different cohorts of females regarding their socioeconomic status, and we divide it by 5, the poorest 20% of Venezuelan females have a fertility rate of 3.0, so higher than the replacement rate. The second poorest fifth of the Venezuelan population have a fertility rate of 1.8 births, below fertility rate, below replacement rate, Then on the middle of the Venezuelan socioeconomic status, the middle 20% is actually a little bit higher, 1.9 births per female, slightly below the replacement rate. On the second richest fifth of the Venezuelan population, the fertility rate is 1.4 births per woman, so is considerably below replacement rate. And the highest 20%, richest 20% of the Venezuelan females have a fertility rate of 0.9 births per female, way below the replacement rate. Also, regarding contraceptives and family planning, female sterilization remains as the method of regulation of births reported with higher frequency among users of contraceptives. The use of pill plays second place in the preference. Between the years 2021 and 2023, the percentage of implant users and who reported vasectomy as a method in use by the couple. So it's not as used, but still considered mostly on the lower middle class. The pill is the most commonly used method at younger ages, from 30 years old. There is a clear tendency to upward sterilization and a definitive method of regulating births, to the point that after 20 years old, just over half of the users, they are sterilized. Between the years of 2021 and 2023, some standout changes in the contraceptive practices between the women from 15 years old to 29 years old decreased the percentage of users of pills, IUDs, male condoms, and contraceptive injections. This variation seems to have been offset by greater access to implants. Now let's go with the labor market. The total economic activity by gender is the male population is 62.7% and female population is 37.7%, and average overall between the Venezuelan population is 55.6%. This is only the registered working population. Now, if we go with the labor participation rate by income first, so we divide the Venezuelan population, 20% from the 20% poorest cohort of Venezuelans to the 20% richest Venezuelans. On the lower quarter is 44% of active working population. The second quarter is 54% of the active working population. On the middle, the 20% in the middle, they have a higher 58% of labor participation. And the second richest fifth of the population has 60% occupation, and the richest 20%, they have 68% of total occupation. Now let's discuss on the segments, on the professions and occupations that these people have. Labor, 52.2%, so the people who are actively working every day. Home work is basically staying at home and doing the chores at home, mostly females, have 10.8%. Students, 5.2%. Pensioners, the elder people, 7.7%. Handicap and others, 3.1%. Women at home, just flat out at home, 8.9%. I'm sorry. Discouraged unemployed that are not actively pursuing work are 8.7%. Underemployed, 1.5%, very low. Typically unemployed is 1.9% actually, and willing to work or maybe change careers are at 21%. Now let's go with the income of each category. When you have employees at the public sector, it's around 20% of the active population, of the working population, and they have an average income of $65 per month. Then you have the employees on the private sector is 22.6% higher than public sector, so that's a good news. They have an average income of $136.3 per month, so way higher to work on the private sector. It used not to be the case back on the old days. Then you have an employer or just owner of the business, 2.5%, and they have an estimated earning of $206.90 per month. Of course, you have to take this with a grain of salt because there are employers. You have employers that make a lot of money and thousands of dollars per month, and you have, of course, struggling entrepreneurs that probably don't make anything per month. So on the average end, you have a bunch of very low-end entrepreneurships that make very little money at the end of the month. Very good. Then also you have self-employed workers. Could be a plumber, a cab driver. You can paint the picture, so it's a very big universe. They are 48.3% of the people occupied, and they have an estimated earning on average of $95.9 per month. And then you have the family helper, or that is on pay. I mean, talking women that work at home. They do their chores and maybe get some compensation. Is around 3.1% of the occupied population, and they have an estimated earning of $58.8 per month. And domestic service, I'm talking women that make, mostly women, could be few men as well, that work, the maid, house cleaning, maybe gardener, something of that nature. They have a 2.7%, the share of the working population, and they have an estimated earning of $57 per month. Now let's go with inequality. I'm going to do a whole video talking about inequality, but today we're going to have a preview on that particular regard. And according to the study, this is the conclusion. The de facto economic opening that has taken place in Venezuela starting in 2019-2020 has led to widen the social differences. These are not only related to the social status of belonging, but very especially access to opportunities. This is something that I discuss a lot here on this platform. Social inequality linked to opportunities is closely related to the city or town in which one resides. So it's not the same thing living in the east side of Caracas that living on a remote small town. Very good. The processes of centralization of public decisions and concentration of social and public services have made this inequality continues to increase. Now, if we divide the Venezuelan population on segments of 10% each, we have a very interesting breakdown regarding general income. So, when we consider the 10 poorest, the 10%, the poorest 10% of Venezuelans, they have an occupation rate of 41.4%. They have an average income that goes between, and this is dreadful, between $0 and $16 per month. Usually are pensioners, elderly people, children or teenage people, and so on. Then, on the second poorest 10% of the Venezuelan population, you have an occupation rate of 46.9% of the population, and their income goes from $16 per month to $26 per month. The third poorest 10% of the Venezuelan population has an occupation rate a little bit over 50%, and they have an income between $26 to $36 per month. Now, on the four poorest 10% of the Venezuelan population, the occupation rate actually jumps to over 57% of the population, and their income goes between 35.8% to $46 per month. Now, when we go to the median Venezuelan population, still lackluster, but you have occupations that go between 55% to 60%. They have a minimal income between $46 per month, and the highest income that goes up to $75 per month. And when you get to the richest 10% of the population, and this is something that you have to take with a grain of salt, because you have people making, let's say, $500 per month, to people making thousands and thousands of dollars, and in some cases millions of dollars, let's say, per year. Now, this population has an occupation rate of 73%, so it's high. The minimal income on this particular cohort is $208 per month, but they have, this is according to the study, $1,166 per month. This is on average on the high bracket. However, something about the study, and this is not mentioned on the study, this is mentioned in other economic studies, is that the rich are very good hiding their wealth. So when you, these particular polls and surveys that you get in Venezuela, and actually everywhere in the world, they're not going to be good tracking the highest income people here in the country. You have people, like I said, people making $2,000, $5,000 per month, $10,000, maybe $100,000, could be millions in some cases. Also, the business owners, the big business owners here in the country, talking private, maybe as an individual, they don't have an official income, but their businesses actually are very profitable, and their expenses go against their balance sheet and not a personal balance sheet. And it's like this person has a very, very great standard of living, but it's not reflected on paper. Also, you have to remind that, and this is something I mentioned a lot of times, we don't have high income jobs, high paying jobs. Like, for instance, you have in the United States that pay $100,000, $200,000 per month. We don't have those kind of jobs, but we have people actually making that kind of money. Of course, not a very tiny percentage of the Venezuelan population, but these people do it either they're self-employed with their businesses, like the previous case that I mentioned, or they just made it abroad with a business abroad or for using internet, let's say crypto, something of that nature. So we have rich people and also very, let's say, financially comfortable people. Of course, there are like, let's say 2% of the population. So that's why you have to take these numbers with a grain of salt. Now, this is something very interesting is regarding the per hour remuneration of Venezuelans according to their education level. People with absolutely no education have an hourly wage of $1.25. People with incomplete primary studies have an income per hour of $2.25. People with complete primary education, $2.62. So according to the study, according to the education level is getting higher. However, it's a caveat, incomplete medium studies, high school, they have an income of $2.48. So you see a trend down. Then complete medium education, $2.62. High, when you complete high school, basically, your income goes high again. Then you have technical degrees. This is very important. They have an average hourly income when they are employed of $4.09. And when you have a college degree, the average income is $3.94 per hour. So it's higher when you have a technical education rather than a college degree. And in order to close this particular review of the economic part of the study, is the territorial inequality and internal mobility. In the last 5 years, there have been moved internally 2.1 million of people. So this is internal migration. This is not the diaspora abroad of Venezuela. 15% was for work reasons. Obviously, people, let's say, moving from a mid-sized city in Venezuela, going to Caracas, the best jobs are in Caracas if you are an employee. 2% for problems related with public services. I mean, actually, I'm surprised that this number is low because usually it was way higher. I met a bunch of people that have moved from less developed cities within Venezuela to more developed cities in Venezuela where they have better public services, electricity, running water, and so on. 80% for personal reasons. So this is very important there is certainly a big trend regarding internal migration in Venezuela. That's why one of the reasons I mentioned this on a previous occasion, that's what you have gentrification in major cities in Venezuela, like Caracas and Valencia, because the standards of living are way better and the opportunities are way better on these particular cities. Of course, depends on each case. And I'm going to close with this particular data that is very important. First, the poverty rate. The overall poverty rate, according to the study, is 82.8%, and that's up 1.4% year over year. So the Venezuelans are getting poor. Of course, they have a very, let's say, high standard for what poverty is, and that's perfectly fine. However, the extreme poverty rate is around 50%, 50.5% according to the study, and is a 0.3 up compared to last year. Now, the poverty rate, especially the extreme poverty rate, it was higher on years 2019, 2010, 2020 of this particular study. It has been reduced significantly on the past couple of years, and apparently is stagnated on these numbers that are still very high. But this is a last thing that the study mentions, that the line of extreme poverty for this particular institution and this particular survey is at $222.60 per month of income per month. And of course, over 80% of Venezuelans don't have this particular income. However, they have social networks, and not talking, Instagram or anything like that. I'm talking with real people. Usually people that live abroad and send some remittances to the elderly family members. And other ways to make income that is not reported on this particular study, and in order to make ends meet. And lastly, it's required 40.8% of the annual oil income in order to end extreme poverty by wealth transfers within Venezuela. This is a staggering number. So basically, you have to take almost half of the oil income in order to end extreme poverty in Venezuela. I disagree with this last state because it's not about income per se. It's about creating the conditions, that improving the conditions in order to make the average Venezuelan citizen more productive for the Venezuelan economy.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.